Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is May 28, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Also want to thank Peter Coogan for introducing me to today's guest. I'm going to try my best. Chanan Beizer. You pronounce it Chanan once so we can hear it right.
It's Chanan Beizer.
Beizer. Thank you. Chanan Beizer.
Yes.
Where in the heck you calling in from?
I live now in the Palms area, like right across the street from Culver City.
Yeah.
But I used to live in Venice Beach and then Santa Monica, and now I'm in Palms.
First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Okay, I've seen your other podcast, so I have a flip answer, which is an orange soda and a potato knish.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. But the more thoughtful answer, let's say, is looking forward to something, having something that you're excited about. It can be anything, whether you're working on a creative project or you're going on vacation or you're meeting someone new, whatever it is, something to look forward to. Yeah. Because boredom is death. Boredom is death.
Love it. I call that AM, anticipatory mindfulness. Looking forward to something. I never get that answer. That's beautiful. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Well, I used to read the newspaper every day, but when I noticed that piles and piles of newspaper were ending up on the floor and I hadn't touched them, I still like reading, but I do get buried sometimes going down a rabbit hole of videos. So, I do like reading, and I like having a book, reading a book or a newspaper or whatever it is. But I've been known to watch videos or stories on video or even reading stories on the computer instead of having a physical book or paper.
Did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to, two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
I think on my own. I mean, I've been reading sci-fi and fantasy and comic books since I was a kid. That got me into reading other things as well. But I don't think anybody ever said you should be reading. It's just something I picked up naturally.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Curiosity, or just wanting to learn new things or wanting to be entertained. I collect books. I collect comic books. It's enjoyable. I associate picking up certain books or comics with a certain time in my life, and I can still remember a lot of those moments.
Is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think collecting information is innate, and what's invented is your permutation of that, the way that you fulfill that innate part of humanity. It's everybody wants to collect information. It's like whether it's learning a new word of the day when you're a child, or it's seeing a new movie. I mean, it's all information. So I just think innately humanity is interested in things and new things and learning things.
Thanks for being so concise and articulate, dude. I appreciate it. Do thoughts create emotions?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I...
It's funny because in my high school yearbook, I picked a quote, and my quote was, all I know is that I know nothing.
Who is it? Who said it?
I think it was Descartes, but it's been so long. I think it was Descartes. I'm not positive.
Yeah.
Repeat your question again. Now I have to think about what you said.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
say it out loud.
Well, there you go. My first example is McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. Can humans think without language?
I don't think so. I mean, there'll never be a way to document that, but right? I mean, how do we do that? There were these experiments back in the day, very cruel experiments, by the way, that they did on kittens, where they kept them in a room after they were born and their eyes opened a few days later, and all that was in the room were vertical things. Nothing was horizontal. It was all vertical. I think I'm remembering this correctly, and it's really screwed them up. So after that point, when you're a child and you're bringing things in, if you're not exposed to a great deal of things, then your focus narrows and you can't see certain things. So I don't know how you would prove that experiment, that thought exercise that you said, but if somebody did that, it would be very, very cruel to try and prove that.
Yeah, you get it. I'm for tangents, stories, anecdotes. I love it. Thank you so much. Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
What do I do when language breaks down? If I'm in a confrontation and the other person's not hearing me and I'm not hearing them, hopefully I would just walk away.
Yeah.
If language breaks down, what do we have besides that? How do we talk to you? How do we communicate with one another? Whether it's sign language, whether it's oral language, whether it's written language, you've got to communicate.
Yeah. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think feeling is the initial reaction, and feelings might overtake logic as well. So hopefully people are rational where they can feel a certain way, but they're open to being convinced to another way, if that's possible. I mean, in today's times, it may not be possible anymore, but I'm hopeful that whatever feeling, I'm going to say gut reaction you might have to something, a person might be able to think about it and realize where they might be right and where they might be wrong. So I'm hopeful about that part.
Yeah, it's amazing how most people answer that. I think we're more feeling beings, but Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And I'm like, good luck. It's people who meditate. They go, now think about not thinking. Or on my street, there's a bumper sticker on a car that says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel. These are two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm familiar with Turing and the Turing machine and all that. Say it again. Say the question again.
Is thinking a function of the soul?
I don't know. I think, again, I'm going to preface this by saying I think, because I don't know for sure, but I think animals can think. So I don't know whether animals have souls. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't.
I want you to feel comfortable at that. If you say, I don't know, or I can't answer that, that's totally okay. It's really me and you psychoanalyzing the wording on the question. So I'm for people shifting it. Rebecca Solnit nailed it. She goes, just because you ask me a question doesn't mean I have to answer it. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. These are just prompts. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
That is the question of the day, of the times we're living in. Can machines think? In every sci-fi story I've ever read, when machines start thinking, it's the downfall of humanity. So I hope machines can't really think, and they're just It's just all just ones and zeros, and they're just reacting to their programming or whatever they've been fed in as programming. Maybe everybody got it wrong. Maybe Asimov, Bradbury, everybody got it wrong. That when the machines take over, we'll be better off. But have you ever seen any scenario that in film, in TV, in literature, where that ends up being a good thing? I can't recall any situation like that.
Yeah, two things really quick. Most people in our community are freaked out by Waymos. I don't know if you've ever taken a Waymo, but they're driverless cars.
Yes.
You know, CBS Sunday Morning 2 Sundays ago said, dude, in 6 minutes, they're way more safer than having your friend drive or a cab driver or a Uber or Lyft. It's got 26 cameras. So logically, I don't drive. I have my friend. Why would I ever ask a friend to drive when I can do that? I'm not going to hire one, but it is a weird thing that's proven that they're safer. And when you go in a car, you want to be safe. So that's just one aside. The other one is, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just driving today, and there were like 3 Waymos all around me. And sometimes when I go on a walk every once in a while in my neighborhood, the Waymo car goes by. To be honest with you, the Waymo is safer than the nutty drivers.
I know it. And it's like, it's a total flip, because when they first came out, everybody was like, whoa. But I was like, if you're going to use our neighborhood to test, you know, to do research and development, which they did, Venice and Santa Monica, you should be driving the homeless and elders to the doctor free. You should be giving back to the community. But anyways, here's the other aside really quick. Theodore Sturgeon wrote a book called More Than Human. I'm interested in it because it was Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead and Frank Zappa's favorite book. Have you ever read More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon?
No, I have not.
Okay. Anyways, if you ever read it, get back to me.
Okay. All right.
Next question. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
At this point in my life, I would like to pursue happiness more than meaning.
Yeah, because Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, is where I got that question. And he says, happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning tends to last. Any comment on that?
All I know is that I'd rather be happy than meaningful. I'd rather be happy.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away? Are we more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I think we're detecting it. I think consciousness is there, and each individual expresses it in a certain way, and whether they express it or not, it's still there.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Well, that's all subjective, isn't it? I mean, to a human can't measure the speed of light, but they can probably measure the speed of thought. But I think the speed of light is faster. I mean, 186,000 miles per second. I don't know how you can get faster than that. You know, it's pretty damn fast.
Audre Lorde, the poet, said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her colleague Yvonne Rainer said, hey, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
What new tool do I
And tool doesn't mean it has to be tangible. It could be non-tangible. So yeah.
I don't know. That one is going over me. I can't.
Okay, drop the word new. What tool do you most gravitate towards?
I gravitate towards visual information.
Good.
And some of that visual information can be words.
Yeah.
It's if you're reading, I mean, that's what I like about reading, is that what you visualize is so different than what anybody else might visualize while you're reading somebody's words. It's the same words,
Yeah.
but we all interpret things differently. So I don't know. That's the best I can come.
That summarizes mid-career. McLuhan updated the medium is the message, or the medium is the massage, to the user is the content. And that's what you just described. The user is the content. So the same question to a toy. What toy do you gravitate towards?
What toy do I gravitate towards? Ooh, this is like nonstop. I gotta come up with one-liners every time. Um, I'm a TV addict, you know,
Yeah.
from back in the day. I've watched a lot of TV. I don't know if that's considered a toy or it's considered information.
Well, that's fine. That's a good toy. But when you say TV, do you mean YouTube now, or do you actually watch TV, network TV?
I still watch a little network TV.
Really? Wow, that's cool. I didn't even know. I didn't even know people had it. Okay, so this is Marshall McLuhan learning from a poet that artists, filmmakers, writers, graphic novelists are antennas of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Because you can't control what people see. An artist can put as much information as they want, whether it's in a comic book, in a panel, or a great impressionist artist on the canvas, or a writer on a page. Once you put it out there, you can't control what the user interprets it as.
Totally.
And you can explain as much as you want, but
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It can't control what somebody thinks about what you have done.
Perfect. Well, we think alike. Once you make your art, it's no longer yours. People can do whatever they want with it. Really good. Do artists have moral obligation?
To themselves.
Yeah.
To be true to what they think they are doing. I don't think they have an obligation to any moral guidance of like, oh, you can't draw that, or no, that's too far. And if it is too far, no one will want to look at it. So
yeah, well, guess what? There was a kid, this was 20, 30 years ago in Florida, who did comic books, self-published, that were so whatever that a judge said, you're forbidden, you can't draw these anymore. And it fucked his life up. It's sort of like a known story in the underground comic world, but it was like shocking that could happen in America.
Did that ruling hold? Wasn't that overturned somehow, or some
I don't know the whole story. What you said? What's the person's name? I thought you just said a person's name. Did that?
No, I just said, did that ruling hold?
Did that ruling hold? Yeah, I don't know the whole story, but the thing is that we knew it was in the culture jamming world, but it was really spooky that it happened in America, and because it fucked the kid up immensely. Like, so, I mean, we think we live in the land of the free, but there is censorship just in the world of publishing and filmmaking. There's all types of that. So are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I can only fear what I'm knowledgeable of. I'm not going to start fearing new things that I don't have any knowledge of. So I would say the old things, because hopefully I'll never find something new that's as frightful as the old things.
It's good. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
My earliest memory ever. maybe not right now. I mean, I think I remember certain things when I was like 5 or 6 years old, but I don't think I remember anything before that.
Well, what one memory from 5 or 6? Just brief.
All right, I have this strange memory of like walking down a darkened hallway when I was a kid in a garden apartment that my family lived in back in Queens. And for some, it's still stuck with me. Often, like down the darkened hall, coming out of a dark doorway, I see a skeletal face.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that actually happened. Like maybe my brother was wearing a mask or something, or
Yeah.
it's just something that some image that I might have seen on TV or that stuck with me. But I remember that hallway in that garden apartment, and I remember the darkened doorway, and I remember seeing a skeletal face, not of the entire skeleton, just the face.
Yeah. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
It's a blessing. It's always a blessing.
Yeah. Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, just briefly, and what was that impact specifically? Kind of like a role model.
All right. Well, you know, I don't know. I had a kind of complicated relationship with my father where it was not so great when I was a kid, but then as an adult, it became very, very good. So I do remember there are certain things that I observed of my father. Like, here's a crazy thing. Like we went to an electronics store to buy a new TV, right? And this is with me as an adult. I'm in my 20s and I'm just joining my father. And he buys the TV. And then, okay, it's going to be $50 to deliver, right? And I say to my father, well, why are you spending $50 to have it delivered? We can just carry it back to the apartment. And he said to me, you know, it's not worth my time to spend $50 in the next hour to carry this giant thing back to my apartment. So I remember that because I think it was an important lesson that your time is worth more than money sometimes.
Yeah.
I know it's a very plain example of so it's not the most profound thing going to Circuit City and buying a TV. It's not a profound moment in life.
But
from that.
He taught you a lesson. It says, as I get in my 70s, all my life is like I'm frugal and I got to save 5 cents or a nickel or $5. Like, forget about it. What is you're going to die and this money's going to sit there if you're going to save some time? I mean, literally, I understand that was a cool lesson, I think. Now, the same question outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, when I was a kid, I went to summer camp a lot. And I remember this one camp counselor who to me, he was just a really, really cool guy. Yep. And I remember that I was really upset about something. I don't even remember what I was upset about, but I was getting overheated and getting riled up. And I just remember him telling me, to calm down.
Yeah.
He even used the phrase, maybe it's out of date now, but cool your jets, calm down. So I do remember that.
That's cool. I do have the same memories. Summer camp counselors were cool to look up to. They were cool dudes. Okay. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yes. Yes. I'm Jewish, conservative Jewish, and so forth.
Do you pray?
Not so much anymore.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Ooh. Oh my God. Good job. Get a thumbs up. That's what I'd like.
Yeah. Evil.
It's funny. I mean, so I get into a little bit of the existential, like what is God and prayer and being thankful in my book. I mean, if I can take an aside for a moment.
Sure.
So I have this part in my book where this main character goes on a vision quest to try and get in touch with his ancestors.
Yeah.
Right? So I have this great art in this part of the book, a 6-page sequence of this art, and I'll just read to you a little bit of it. So it begins with, after my parents died, I was overwhelmed with emotion. Again, this is fictional. This is not me. I was overwhelmed with emotion, guilt, fear, hate. But one stood out overall, doubt. I'd lost faith. I couldn't get something out of my head. I was going to synagogue to say the mourner's Kaddish, the prayer to honor the dead for my parents. That's what you're supposed to do 3 times a day for 11 months. But did I understand what I was saying, what the words actually meant? So I get into that a little bit in this 6-page dream sequence. So it's curious.
Show the cover of your book so people know. It's the Golem of Venice.
The Golem. This is book 1, the Golem of Venice Beach, and it's a great cover by one of the greatest comic book artists still working today. His name is Bill Sienkiewicz, and this is the second book, which comes out today in May. This is the Golem of Venice Beach 2. And this concludes the story. And this cover is by another great artist, very famous comic book artist by the name of Frank Quitely. So in the first book, there are 7 different artists. And in the second book, there are 10 different artists. And some of them overlap.
How cool. Really cool. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Oh, evil people definitely exist.
So the hidden question really is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. A lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
That's a tricky question, because by not acknowledging, and if you ignore your enemy can come back and bite you in the ass. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that is correct, because, okay, by acknowledging your enemy, you are giving him some power over you. But by ignoring your enemy, what are you going to do? Look over your shoulder for the rest of your life? And I mean, the enemy is there. It's not going to go away by you not thinking about it.
But that's the question. If a friend or someone you knew, a loved one, said, hey, I'm being bullied, what advice would you give them?
Well, everything is, context is key in all these things. Well, what are the repercussions? It's the old thing that you got to stand up to a bully and punch your bully as hard as you can right in the face. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. It's definitely a tough question, because if you do that and your bully pulls out a gun, what are you going to do?
Yeah, because here's the follow-up. Nassim Taleb, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Gregory Bateson says, hey, when the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. Basic question is, does punishment work?
I hope so. I hope so. I think I did take a criminology class once back in my maybe freshman or sophomore year. Unfortunately, again, you get stuck down these rabbit holes of what I do get stuck on some videos here and there, and you keep on watching similar ones, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And it's so basic that the first thing that the quotation marks criminal, whether it's shoplifting, whether it's dangerous driving, whatever it is, the first thing they say is, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. So rarely do you say, okay, you got me. I took these things from Target, or I was stealing. So nobody thinks what they're doing is bad, whether it's stealing or killing. Somebody always has a rationale. So, I don't know who said it, but I think in one of the mob movies, somebody was asking the person who the movie was about. Maybe it was Goodfellas or something like that. Like, who's the good guy in this movie? And the mobster goes, I am. Who's the bad guy? The cops. So, you're always in your own movie, and you're usually the hero of your own movie or your own story, whether what you're doing is evil or bad or whatever.
Yeah, there's a great culture jammer who says, if you're on a protest on the street and the cops are right in front of your face, you get everybody to chant, give the cops a raise, give the cops a raise. Like, how are the cops going to literally beat you up when you're doing that? Or as Frank Zappa said it so well, you got to love the cops as they beat the shit out of you on the street. But that was a little satirical. So this is James Joyce, the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. Basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building, see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Because most people's lives are pretty mundane. I mean, they don't have that many exciting things happen in them. They don't have a hero saving a damsel from distress. I mean, these are things that don't usually happen to most people. So I think it's entertaining to see life at the extreme levels.
Yeah. Where's your tipping point when you're growing up, you're watching TV, you're reading, where you go, I want to be a writer. That's what I want to do. That's my calling in life. Where's your tipping point? What'd you study in high school and college? Give me a sort of a rundown.
Science and math. I went to probably the best science and math public high school in the U.S., Stuyvesant High School. My degrees as an undergrad, I got a degree in computer mathematics and a degree in computer science as an undergrad. And I was working as in the computer division at NBC. I was a computer analyst writing programs and so forth. And after 2 years, I just said to myself, is this really what I want to do? I love stories, whether they were comic books, TV shows, or movies. And I quit that job and started setting myself on the road to working in TV. And then eventually I decided to go to film school. And then even writing this graphic novel. I've always liked stories.
Yeah.
And as one of the things I said before, boredom is death. And I was writing these computer programs and I was bored to death.
Yeah.
So I just had to get out of there.
Where'd you go to film school?
If this was 3 years ago, I would have said it with a lot of pride. But right now, I can't say it with that much pride. I went to Columbia University Graduate Film School.
Yeah. Well, at least you didn't go to NYU. You know what NYU stands for? Now you're unemployed.
I was rejected by NYU. I would have gone to NYU if I had gotten.
So, a screenwriting teacher told me great art, great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you clearly not see the intention of the maker. You wrote your book. What role did intention play in your creative process writing that book?
My intention, or what?
What role did intention play in both making your feature film? Because you made your feature film before the book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can go.
While I was in film school, I made the feature film.
Yeah, you can go into that, but your book's your main thing right now. What role does intention play in your creative process?
I think the intention. My intention is to tell a story. So if that's it's 100% there. So without, I mean, it played a huge role. My intention was always to tell this story. So that's what I did.
Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential reader when you're writing your book?
Not so much when I'm writing, but now that it's completed and it's out there, I think about it a lot. I want people to read this story. Maybe it's my own ego that I want the story to be out there, and I want to leave my mark on this particular story. So yeah.
But I mean, while you're writing it, you're not thinking of them. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't.
I wrote the story as it came to me.
Yeah.
I don't think I thought about the audience. That audience was me. I was the audience.
Yeah.
So that's who I was writing it for. I don't think I ever intentionally wrote something that I did not like because I thought somebody in the audience might like it more than I do. So I write it because I like it, and I don't put anything that I don't like it in there.
Yeah. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter and a camera extends our eyelids, say. Maybe even non-tangible, say religion or philosophy, extends consciousness. What is the writing utensil, whether it's a pen or a keyboard? What humanness does the writing utensil extend for you?
Imagery, language, thoughts.
Yeah, it's good. This is Milan Kundera.
You're asking so many tough questions, man. You're making me think a lot more than I've done in a while. Okay,
dude, you're doing great. We're here to have fun.
Yeah,
it's like Ginsberg, first thought, best thought. You don't have to think so hard. It's really, I'm more after your percept than your concept.
Sure. Okay.
It's just, Milan Kundera wrote a book, The Unbearable Likeness of Being. He said, this is why I love writing, because the character that I'm writing about can go further than I can. Yeah, that sounds really romantic. You wrote a character in your book and it could go further. How can that happen? How can a character go further than what you put on the page?
Maybe he was thinking about what he can actually do in life. You can write about, going to the moon. That doesn't mean I can actually go to the moon. But if I write about it in my mind, maybe I've gone to the moon.
Yeah. Well, that's the poet critic Helen Vendler just passed. She says, I write to explain things to myself. Any thoughts on that line?
I personally, I didn't do it to explain it to myself. I wrote what I've written because I have this story and I'm kind of finding the story as I'm writing it. I don't have all the answers at the beginning. Like for this particular book, I had a beginning. I actually did have an end, but I didn't have everything in between.
Yeah.
So in the writing is where I found the story in a certain sense.
Yeah, that's good. Because Steve Martin loves to quote David Mamet. Art is a product of the unconscious mind. And Lakoff says, oh yeah, we operate 80% in the unconscious or subconscious. I felt when we started 40 minutes ago, for this 40 minutes, we've been both pretty conscious, pretty much a lot more than 20%. I feel we're both pretty much 95% present and conscious. But in that statement, he's saying art is a product of the unconscious mind. Any thoughts on that in your process in making your story.
Maybe it's just a way to free the mind. You can write about a lot of things that you've never experienced yourself, so you can imagine, and you're freeing your mind to experience things that your body has not experienced. So possibly, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's good. Freedom. We're going to get into freedom. This is Bertel Breck asked Charles Lawton, why do you act? And Lawton said, because people don't know what they are like, and I think I can show them. Any comment on that line?
Charles Lawton was a great actor. I don't know, like they asked Al Capone, was it Al Capone? Why do you rob the banks? That's where the money is. So isn't that the line?
I don't know. I need that for my quote collection, because there is a great line I have in here somewhere. This is it. It's almost, it applies to writers. Sam Johnson. No man but a blockhead ever wrote except for money. Okay, here's another one. Like artist. Art is making your problems other people's problems.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
This one's a little more difficult because I can't even imagine what she's saying, but this is a poet, Fanny Howe. The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't.
Ooh, that's by showing that life isn't worth living. That's the point of, I don't know. That one's tough to wrap my head around.
But in one of your podcasts, you're really articulate on your many podcasts explaining your book. In one of them, you say something like elegance, darkness. Do you remember? Something about darkness, because there's something you probe in the dark. I mean, is that like Carl Jung, the shadow? Because maybe that's what Fanny's touching on. The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't.
Well, one of the things I tried to attempt in this story, and one of the reasons why I based it in Venice, because Venice is such an interesting place. It reminds me a bit of New York, because people walk around and they interact, whether positively or negatively. But it's more so than in New York. Daytime Venice is so different than nighttime Venice.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great way to show the dichotomy of like film noir versus film soleil. That in the 1960s they came up with this term, film soleil. So where film noir is in the shadows and Venetian blinds and the darkness, film soleil is the sweaty, you can't escape from the sun, and it can be just as blinding as the darkness that you have in the shadows for film noir. So maybe I was talking about like the difference between night and day, and whether it's things can be hidden in the shadows, but they can also be hidden in broad daylight. So it's an interesting dichotomy that is really all there in a place like Venice.
Yeah. Couple things. Did you study or you read Carl Jung and The Shadow and all that, or not really?
No, I have not.
Don't worry. But
maybe I'm a bit of a I like sci-fi, I like fantasy, I like comic books. I have read some of the classics, but not in a long time.
Yeah, no worries. I was just curious. And then when you say film soleil, are you referencing Chris Marker's film Sans Soleil, or you're saying there is a genre called film soleil?
Yeah, it's a very like Bad Day at Black Rock. You know that Spencer Tracy movie?
Is that considered film soleil?
I believe so. Like he's always sweating, and he's in this desert town. There's no place to hide from the sun. And there's a couple of. Do I have that book right here?
Well, this is really good because you're turning me on to something. I've studied film for 5 decades. I never heard Film Soleil, but
Film Soleil.
Oh my God! What's the last name on the author? Holm.
D.K. Holm. Holm. This is the Pocket Essential Film Soleil. I picked it up a while ago.
Oh my God!
On the cover, it's got Nicolas Cage. So it just helped me start thinking about. So some of the films, like, well, I guess the roots of Film Soleil actually shows in the 40s and the 50s, but he talks about introduction, film noir versus film soleil. So
oh my God!
That's one of the things that got me thinking about this.
So important. That's why I do these, so I can learn, man. That's a major thing. Because do you know the film Sans Soleil, S-A-N-S, Soleil by Chris Marker?
No, I do not.
Dude, go out of your way. It's the greatest film ever made. It's mind-blowing. It changed. It is one of the great films of all time. You know Godard and Truffaut and Agnes Varda. Well, he's the king of all those French guys. Okay. And he's in Sans Soleil is unbelievable film. But you got to see it on a big screen. You watch it on a tiny screen and you're not going to get it. But anyways, really beautiful what you taught me there. Thank you so much. So this is going off on that. Malraux is a French theorist. He said the purpose of art is to transfer destiny into awareness. So another great experimental filmmaker, Hollis Frampton, said narrative is born out of the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
Can I forget to die?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'd love it if it happened. I mean, that sounds like a Monty Python sketch. Can you? I'm 165 years old. I just forgot. I forgot. You remember that? I think it was.
I don't remember that one. Which?
No. I just made that up. There is nothing like that. I just made that up. But it reminds me of the Monty Python's film, The Meaning of Life.
Yeah.
Which, there's this great scene where these friends and family are gathered at a country cottage, and having a wonderful time. They just had a very nice meal, and suddenly there's a knock at the door, and so they answer the door, and it's the angel of death. Yeah, and they said, "I'm here for you," or something like that. And he goes, and they say, "Which one? All of you." And he goes, "All of us? What happened?" And the skeletal finger points at one of the serving dishes, and he goes, "It was the salmon mousse." So, the forgetting to die could be along that same line as a sketch from Monty Python.
Yeah, it reminds me of in Life of Brian, the guy's giving the big speech to a huge crowd, and he goes, "Repeat after me." What's now? I can't think of the line. We are all individuals, and then everybody chants, "We are all individuals," and one guy in the back goes, "Not me," and that was made up by an extra. Nice. An extra just yelled it out, and the guy goes, "Okay, keep that." It wasn't their witty writing, or they just knew how to cast extras good.
Yeah.
So this is Utah Phillips. He says, anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
I think everybody makes their own rules, what they want to follow and what they don't want to follow. And they're not necessarily right, but everybody makes their own rules.
Yeah. Funny is because you brought up freedom earlier, and freedom, the word etymologically means giving oneself one's own laws. What does freedom mean to you now?
Freedom is to freedom to me is going back to one of the things that you first asked me about, is to looking forward to things. And that's kind of like where I am in life, is to look forward to things. I don't want to bog myself down with, and luckily I'm in a situation where I don't have to worry about the roof over my head or like my health insurance, all that stuff. I don't have to worry about that. So that is freedom. And that is a certain sense of freedom. And I'm very, very appreciative of that.
But a lot of people write books, because I went in a big discussion with my group today about graphic novels. Like, are they considered highbrow literature, or are they like poo-pooed like comic books were? And we know Alan Moore, these big. Do you make your living through writing your books, or do you have a day gig?
Yeah. I had a day gig for a long time, and I kind of these two books took me 15 years.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to break even on these books. I'm never going to, let alone make any money on these things. The only way that could happen is that if, like, in my head, I see it as a movie, if I ever am able to make that leap, maybe I could make a living off of that. But no, I work for the past 20 years or so. I work in network TV sports.
Oh, you work at sports,
television sports. So that's where I made my money, and luckily so. And that's so I'm very grateful for that as well, because it gave me the opportunity to continue using my imagination for my own projects.
Dude, that's the cool thing. When you can get a gig that doesn't blow out your imagination so you can go home and write your book. But what is your role in the sports TV world? What do you call yourself?
Well, I've done a few different things, and I don't work as much as I used to, but at the height of my career, I was working as a director for some studio shows.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of things. I've been an associate director. I've worked some live events. But mostly it's been studio shows and where they talk about sports. Where that I've only done a very small amount of actually going to events and televising live events. I've just done a little bit of that. It's mostly about basically TV talk shows talking about sports, whether it was football, baseball, showing highlights, that kind of thing.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. My friend, and I'm curious your gravitation towards comic books, sci-fi. And my friend says in music, the 3 T's are technique, theory, and taste. So, technique is you learn how to do something. Theory is, the structure. How does one acquire taste? In other words, how did you gravitate towards sci-fi and comics? What guided you? How do you acquire the taste to go that direction rather than the million other directions you could have went? You could have gravitated towards different kind of literature. So how do you explain, how does one acquire taste?
Everybody's taste is different. So my taste gravitated towards the futuristic sci-fi or the magical elements of fantasy or whatever it is. I like the fantastic. I like the supernatural. I mean, even to a certain extent, you were asking before what religion I was. I mean, I'm a former yeshiva boy. So even though I went to that public high school prior to that, I was at a yeshiva. So it's all stories, whether it's from the Torah or the Nevi'im. It's all. So Samson was a pretty cool superhero. He was like a superhero, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And there's all these adventure stories of Moses and Joshua and King David. These are all like adventure stories. They're also teaching lessons, I guess. But when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you're just, Samson's the strongest guy in the world. He's like Superman. So that led me to start reading about Superman, and Spider-Man and whatever else. So that, I mean, I don't know what you can get as a when you're first introduced to Bible studies. Do you really get the religious overtones on things? It's just they're fun stories.
Yeah, I got you. That was good. Again, you're concise and articulate. This is Carolyn Casey, one of my heroes. She says, magic is the willingness to cooperate with everything. You just brought up that word magic because it's an interesting word. How do you process that line? Magic is the willingness to cooperate with everything.
Because if you can't explain it, it's magic, right? You're cooperating because, okay, I'm not going to, you see something that you can't explain.
Yeah.
So, and in your mind, you have to rationalize it to a certain extent, whether it's primitive people, they couldn't understand what an eclipse is. So they rationalized that it's some great being in the sky. And so if you can't explain it, then it's magic. It's magic. What else can it be?
Yeah. I spoke with Michael Apted about 40 years ago. I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know rapid montage was invented in 1922 by Abel Gance. But in the 80s, it flourished because of MTV, to the point where Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Well, Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. I asked this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I think we can take information faster. I mean, sometimes the brain couldn't process things. You know, when the first people who went to see early movies, right, and they saw a train coming at them, they actually thought a train was coming at them, right? They couldn't process the fact that it's just images of a train coming at you. Michael is a great filmmaker. I think he came when I was at film school. He came to speak to us one time.
Yeah,
he did that. Not only is he a great fiction filmmaker, he's also a great documentarian.
Oh, great!
There's 7 Up, 14 Up,
28 and up, 28 and up. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
But really, the hidden question is: can humans literally multitask?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny what you said, because I got to go back for a second. I have a copy of the first review of the movie screening ever in Paris. Like the LA Times of Paris, before 1900. They showed a film and the reviewer says, this new contraption's amazing. Now we'll never die. Okay, so what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Just your guess or your hunch?
To tell stories.
Yeah,
they wanted to tell the story of how they killed the mammoth, or how they got food that day. I think it's just telling stories, whether it's by the fireside or pictures on the wall.
Yeah. Really good. You keep bringing up the word story. I spoke with several great writers over these 40 years, and one of them told me something. He didn't necessarily believe it, but he thought it was an interesting thing. He said, someone once told me, narrative doesn't lie, stories do. What's your take on that? Is there a difference? Really, the question is, what's the difference between narrative and story? Is there?
I'm guessing that story is somebody's personal viewpoint about things. If it's possible at all, narrative is some kind of like of explanation that doesn't have a point of view. If that's possible, I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah. Well, that's funny, because that's exactly what I've learned from studying McLuhan. Is he said understanding is not having a point of view. Now, that's sort of hard and it's a high aspiration, but he says if you stand back and study the patterns, get comprehensive awareness, the big picture, you're going to understand the big picture. Personally, you can have a point of view and go, I love Facebook or I hate Facebook. But when you're with one or more people, if you have what's called suspended judgment, which you sort of explained in narrative, suspended judgment isn't taking a point of view. It's just laying out what this thing does to us. Okay, so what's more important, conviction or compromise?
I'm going to say compromise, because there's just too many things happening, and if nobody compromises, then we're all going to go down the toilet. I don't know.
Dude, there's no right or wrong answers to any of my questions, but that one you got right.
Okay.
But you'd be amazed. Most people say conviction. And it's like, come on, everybody's, conviction's not going to move the project forward. And people think, well, you got to have conviction, because they think it's like, well, it's like the next one, because I'll tell you the history of this question, but it's interesting because you know the film world. Okay. How do you rate these three elements in your accomplishments? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Unfortunately for me, luck plays a very large role, and I haven't had as much luck as I would like to have. Luck. What were the other two?
Skill and ambition.
I think skill and ambition are hand in hand.
Wow. Yeah.
Difficult to be able to do something without having both of those. But you know what? I'm going to go back to my D&D days. If your luck level is so high that skill and ambition don't mean anything, you can still succeed. But you have to be really, really lucky.
What's D&D stand for?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, Dungeons and Dragons.
In Dungeons and Dragons, every character has attributes. Skill, athletic ability. And all your attributes come to you by a roll of a dice. So if you roll your dodecahedron, which is a 20-sided dice, and you land 20 on luck, you don't need as much skill or ambition. You could get a 1 or a 2 on skill and ambition.
Yeah, that was really good, because one thing you evoked, the great golfer Gary Player, he says, the more you practice, the luckier you get.
True.
I mean, you could be struggling and be out there on the Venice boardwalk like a lot of my homeless friends are, but you actually got a nice place, but you wrote about it and you spent your 15 years writing your books, and all the power to you, because you had a decent day job. But it's funny, because this is how, it's really me and you versus the wording on the questions. We're sort of psychoanalyzing how these questions got worded, and I'm for people changing it. And I used to ask this question, and I'll ask you at first: is ambition based more on fear or joy?
I hope joy. I mean, for me, I hope it's joy.
But in general, for humans, your observation.
Ambition based on fear or joy? All I can speak. I can't really observe that for other people.
That's fine, because most people. That's where I got the question from Christine McKinney many years ago. Is ambition based more on fear or joy? It's implying in the world, people would go fear. They would constantly say that. But people who are positive, like you're up and positive dude, they go, I want my ambition to be based on joy. But then I read Friedkin a couple of years ago. Before he died, he says, in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. So then I made it the three choices. And a lot of times when I give people those three choices, luck, skill, and ambition, they go, it's none of those three. It's purpose, destiny, persistence. It's many other things. And that's what in my group in discussing graphic novels today, they said, are graphic novelists more driven by an obsession or a destiny or a persistence or a purpose than they are to make money? Because I says, why did this art form become big?
I do believe before you're successful, I don't think you're writing your graphic novel for money.
Right.
Once you've reached success and maintaining what you've gotten, and I haven't reached that level, believe me.
Yeah.
Then it's about money. But I don't think of the people that I know who are in that class that I took to teach me how to write for comic books. Nobody was in there to make money. They were in there because they wanted to tell their particular story, and whether it made money or not wasn't really a factor.
Good, because that you're saying they love the art form. It's just like you going to film school instead of staying with coding in computers.
Right.
Yeah. A poet says poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
I think it's visual. I really love certain images, and I still remember certain images that I remember from great films. And I try to incorporate that imagery in my books, in my graphic novel. I would be stuck on a certain image that I wanted the artist to convey, and I worked very, very hard for them to convey that. Sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes it was their interpretation was better than what I had in mind. But I think visually, certain images stuck with me, and I wanted to convey them I wanted to convey this three-dimensional imagery in my head in a two-dimensional format, which is tricky sometimes.
Very good. Two of my film heroes have this mantra: ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas. There is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle, and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for that, whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I think it's self-expression.
Can art making be egoless?
No.
Is perception reality?
This is like going to the Matrix, right? It's perception reality.
like no, you know the T-shirt I saw at the Black Lives Matter protest said The Matrix was a documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, you were like this, you know, what's that guy's name who starred in The Matrix? What's his name? Keanu Reeves. He came into our bookstore in Santa Monica and bought every McLuhan book when he was in that movie.
Oh, okay.
So he knew.
One of the characters in that movie, I forgot his name, but anyways, he betrays them at a certain point in the first film, and he goes like, the reason he betrayed them is that, you know, I'm eating a steak, and I know it's all in my head, but it tastes so good. So what's if it's fake or real? It tastes good to me right now. So that's really that point of like, is perception reality, or reality your perception? So that sums it up right there. You're
a good listener, dude, because I went off on that little tangent, and then you pulled it right back to the question. Really good, because those brothers who are now sisters who made Matrix, they got a lot of it from reading McLuhan. And McLuhan said a great line just along that line. He says, when you go to a restaurant and you eat the dinner, you're tasting the description in the menu. You're not tasting the food. Oh, orange roughy with almonds, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's what you're tasting. Okay, so Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
I don't think so. Impossible things. I'm kind of like even though I love sci-fi and fantasy, I'm pretty much a realist in everyday things.
Tell me one major element of your creativeness, say over the 15 years writing the book, 2 books, one major element that stayed the same and one that's changed.
Okay, what changed was in the net result of like the imagery that was, I talked about the film noir and the soleil noir. All of my intentions of that element did not really come through as much as I had thought it would have within the graphic novels themselves. Even though there might be a taste of it, it didn't come through the way I imagined it would. That really distinctive, like daytime and nighttime and so forth. What still is there is that this idea of, so I don't know if you know the story of the golem, but it's a 16th century legend of this man by the name of who's known as the Maharal, creating a figure out of clay, mud, whatever, to protect his people, and it became out of control. It had to be suspended animation. So that whole idea of unintended consequences is part of what the story always, I wanted it to be there, and I think that has stayed in there. The law of unintended consequences of which is, I mean, it's the same story as supposedly Mary Shelley was influenced by the story of the golem when she wrote Frankenstein. It's Terminator. It's RoboCop. It's the law of unintended consequences when mankind takes the power of God in his or her own hand and creates life. But I mean, as somebody once pointed out to me, that's basically the same thing as when you have children. You don't know what you're going to get, right? When you have a child, it's the law of unintended consequences. You don't know. You try to guide the child, just like Dr. Frankenstein tried to guide his monster. It's not necessarily that children are monsters, but you can't control, once you create life, you can't control where it goes eventually. So I think that has stayed the same within the book.
Beautiful. That's everything McLuhan learned from reading Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, is there's hidden psychic effects. You call them unintended consequences. I brought it up earlier. Everything we invent has hidden psychic effects. And we just grab onto cars or guns or movies, and we don't know what they're really doing to us. And that's what, you read that book, you studied in film school, you studied graphic novels, that you studied somewhat what's the hidden psychic effect so you can make it, but you still don't, we never will know, but it's still worth, it's like Sidney Lumet saying films can't do diddly squat, but it ain't going to keep me from trying. Right. So anyways, that leads perfectly. You got ESP. Moshe Feldenkrais says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
A weakness that I turned into a strength. I don't know. A weakness that I turned into a strength. I mean, I could say those lines that you give it, like when back in the day when you went to job interviews. What is your greatest weakness? I care too much. That kind of stuff. That kind of BS that you would tell recruiters when they ask you that question. So a weakness that I turned. I can tell you how something changed, and that I was more open. My weakness might have been that I was, at least early on in the process, my weakness was that I wanted the artist to do exactly what I depicted in my head to put it on stage. And that was actually a weakness. And so what changed, and it became a strength, in that when I was willing to let go, many times the artist came up with better ideas than I had. But I must say, there were certain times where I was adamant about certain things, and I was right about those. So I think by being able to let go in certain situations, I could kind of like put my foot down in other situations where I think I was in the right and the artist was in the wrong. And there weren't that many of those things, but they were very important for certain little places within the graphic novels.
It's really good. You really articulated it well, because it's like, that's again what Joyce teaches in Finnegan's Wake. How do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough, a rejection into a redirection? And a good example is Iggy Pop said, my band was so bad imitating the Rolling Stones, we invented punk rock. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when...
Anger can be a productive emotion when it leads you to the next step. If you can, when you can let go of that anger, actually, to a certain extent, anger can be a productive asset when you can finally let go of that and be open to another idea. I mean, nobody wants to be angry all the time. It's not a good feeling. You don't want to be angry all the time.
Yeah. It's really good. There's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, said, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So okay. Your thoughts on this line, you create what you resist. Not you, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
One creates what one resists. The only thing that comes to mind is that what one creates one's own reality, whether or not you're resisting or not. Whether you're accepting something, you still create your own reality. Whether you're resisting something, you still create your own reality.
Yeah.
In your head, at least. It might not be productive, but as we discussed before, you're the hero of your own movie. So you're always going to be the hero, with whether what you're doing is good or whether what you're doing is evil. The great, not the great, but the infamous evil people in the world in history. And I don't want to go through the list because there's too many of them. Did they think that what they were doing was evil, or did they think they knew better? So, I don't know. That's what I got.
Good. We got about 10 more minutes. It's really been fun. I appreciate your help here, man. Okay, so what's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Oh, I don't want to get close to that question. What's the most difference between men and women? Let's just say that women are a lot better at certain things and men are a lot better at certain things. And what's great is if they can do the yin and the yang to balance each other out. Let's just put it that way.
These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words. 1, who started it all?
I'm going to go to graphic novels. A guy by the name of Will Eisner.
I know him. Very good. Will Eisner. 2, are we going to make it?
Yes.
Where do we put it?
Anywhere you can.
Who's cleaning it up?
Hopefully not me.
Is it serious?
Absolutely.
How do you find peace of mind?
Going back to what we discussed all the way at the beginning, is that looking forward to something.
Oh yeah.
So
where'd you get that from? More from the way your parents raised you or on your own? It's sort of like you're a optimist. Wouldn't you say?
There was a time that I considered myself a pessimistic optimist. Really looking. I really want something to happen, but I know it's not going to happen. Or I'm an optimistic pessimist. It's always which one takes control. So I just don't want to be bored in life. I just don't want to be bored.
But looking forward is more of an optimistic thing. There's a great line. It says your dreams can't come true unless you have dreams.
True.
So you says I want to move the project forward. Where did you get that from? On your own more, or on the way your parents raised you?
I think on my own more. I mean, I think that's just me.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Oh my God.
I'm glad you can laugh, man. We're trying to have fun. No worries.
By Microsoft as soon as whatever you it was important to do it if you were going to do it within the first year, for the first actually month of it. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah, that's it.
Try to have more fun in life. That's basically it.
Very good. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over, always over.
If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oi Gewalt.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Lavender.
Oh, nice. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
Okay. In my honor, I wish it was displayed in the summer camp that I went to, because that's where some of the happiest times in my life.
That's a good answer. And what would it be made of?
Wood.
Good. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Good I never had and I never want. I don't know that one. I'm gonna pass on that one. Something good that I never had or I never want. I don't know.
I'll tell you the three answers I get the most.
Okay.
Fame, money, and heroin.
Heroin?
Yeah. Okay, we're almost done. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone
throws up, yeah, I've heard.
You know this? You know this?
I know this one. If you're up to your neck in shit and somebody throws a bucket of vomit at you, do you duck?
No. What the question is? What my way I read it is, what would you do?
Oh, okay. So the question is either to duck or just take it in the face, right?
No, I've in 40 years I've had a million different answers, but you're the first person I've ever heard know that question. I got it from an Altacocker on Venice Boardwalk, who's one of my heroes, and he taught me that question. And I've asked that. My wife won't even let me ask that to people. She goes, "That's horrible." Some people, I'll tell you one good answer, but what would you do? You're in a vat of vomit. Someone throws a bag of shit at your face. What would you do?
I duck into the vomit rather than take a face full of shit.
Let me tell you one answer that's in your realm, because Edgar Allan Poe, this woman on the Venice Boardwalk actually said this. She said, "I take the velocity of the bag of shit and use it to swoop my way out of the vat of vomit." And I says, dude, that is Descent into the Maelstrom by Edgar Allan Poe. The sailor's being swooped down to his death with the broken boat in the whirlpool, and he watches the patterns of the broken boat and he uses it to swoop his way out.
Okay. All right.
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Ooh, I thought you were going to say that you're fearful of. I could answer that one more readily.
Okay, flip it if you want.
Or
do both.
The rise of the useful idiot is really fearful. The rise of the useful idiot is very, very fearful. Puts a lot of fear in my head.
Well, I'm going to send you my essay. I just wrote an essay for Venice Beachhead on name calling all idiots. I'd love to get your reaction to it. That's an amazing word. But what is a cultural shift that does inspire you currently?
It does inspire me. I don't know. I could have answered that question better 3 years ago, but it's difficult for me to answer that right now because I don't feel a lot of inspiration from the youth of America. I don't feel that they're inspiring at all. And I think that I could have answered that question that way 3 years ago, but I can't answer it right now.
Wow.
I'm not. I'm very fearful of that demographic of, and maybe we're to blame. We're to blame because of YouTube and TikTok and AI and all these things. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is.
How old are you?
I don't want to say, but I'm
Okay,
old enough.
That's all right. No worries. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Is there really an afterlife? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Scientifically, I would say no, but hopefully and like religiously, you would want to say yes. But you're never going to find out unfortunately, we're all going to find out the answer to that, but at the point where it doesn't make a difference to the people around now. I don't know.
I'm going to send you a quote by my friend who explains that really well. You can check it out. It doesn't mean you got to believe it or not, but I'll introduce you to Paul Krasner's great line. I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
Right.
How has writing fiction shaped your behavior?
I don't know the answer to that one. I really don't. I don't know whether it's changed my behavior because I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So I don't know whether it would have changed, if it's changed in one way or the other. I really don't know. I don't know.
How has working in the sports world shaped your behavior? How has that straight job shaped your behavior?
It's shaped my behavior that today I do not want to work in some of the situations that I used to be exposed to all the time. I just don't want to take, luckily, knock on wood, that I don't work as much now as I used to.
Yeah.
So I was very fearful when that first happened, but I'm glad that I am where I am now. Whatever. You hear all these terrible stories about, like, in a control room. I don't know if you're aware of what a control room is like on a sports thing, but like a lot of the times when I was doing things, let's just say that certain people in certain powers who don't really know how to make good TV, but they think they do. So I'm glad I'm no longer, even though I still work in there, I work in kind of a different area now. I don't have to put up with the BS that I used to put with when I really needed that job. So So
that's good. You learned how to adapt to getting better work situation.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All the power to you. Two more and we're out of here, dude. This is Thornton Wilder in 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
I'm just going to go back to telling stories. And it's really, I don't know why I have that desire to tell stories. And this is not my only story. I've got other stories to tell in different ways, shapes, and forms, whether it's as a film or as a short story. It's probably, as we talked a little bit about before, that it is somewhat egotistical, that you want other people to hear your stories. That's ego, right? But I just think I just want it for whatever reason. I want it. I want people to hear my stories.
Yeah. But it's funny because I can go back to that for 1 second. When I ask people, can art making be egoless? They usually say no. But a woman told me about a year ago, great art is egoless. And when you think of it, the universality of storytelling that is successful is because you learn that from your religious studies and knowing these classic, Joseph Campbell kind of hero journey stuff in comic books, because that's the comic guys all did that. The comic books all did. I mean, you ever read The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler?
No.
Anyways, you should, especially get Christopher Vogler's. He lived in Venice. He changed Hollywood forever because he basically took what George Lucas got out of Joseph Campbell and put it in a how to write a screenplay book. And it's really how James Joyce fucked cinema up forever. He ruined Hollywood through Finnegan's Wake, because Joseph Campbell got everything he knows from Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, which is ridiculous because it's an unreadable book. But it is funny that there's this universality. The basic thing you brought up there was that the word ego carries this baggage because of Freud, because they think it's egotistical. But ego, that you sort of backed up and says, well, I might be being egotistical. No, you're not. You're generous and you want to tell stories. That doesn't mean you're egotistical. That's your ego. You're trying to explain what drives that inside of you. That's like the poet who says poetry's outing your inner dialogue. There's something deeper inside you and you want to get it out, and you've learned, I can get it out through writing. So, all the power to you. What gives you... Go ahead.
So really quick aside, I know we're wrapping up, but so I saw that article about you and your reading group, right? That it took you how many years to finish?
It doesn't matter. It took us 28 years, but it doesn't matter. James Joyce has had reading clubs for Finnegan's Wake since 1929. So the first ones were in 54. It doesn't matter how long. It's a cyclical book. It's just that everybody thinks when you read a book, it's supposed to end. And this book doesn't end because, basically Joyce invented the graphic novel and disguised it as a book. And he invented Zoom and everything. He invented whatever's going to be after the internet and disguised as a book. But most people think it's ridiculous. It just got on Colbert last week because my friend's reading club in Austin's taken 12 years. So people just discount it. All it is what you're talking.
Yeah, I'm not discounting it. I read the article several weeks or months ago, and I finally now I just remember. Oh yeah, I read that article. Finnegan, So,
but it's like, here's the thing: your love of storytelling. What Joyce is doing with Finnegan's Wake is he's writing language about language. So there's a story in there, but it's not crystal clear. So you got to work a little harder, but really you don't, because it's like, what happens when you grow up? The first thing you do is your parents try to get you to fall asleep by reading you a book out loud. They're reading the words out loud and you're looking at the words, but you can't understand words yet. You're looking at the pictures more, graphic novel, and you're learning how to read Finnegan's Wake, that it is more an ear experience than an eye experience. He flips the eye experience of reading into an ear experience, but you have to see the words and hear them mispronunciated as it's being read out loud. And it's really an amazing thing. I mean, if you ever taken any psychedelics, you don't need them. You just read Finnegan's Wake. Read Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people, and it's you'll at some point realize it's like tripping. So big deal.
Okay.
So what gives you the most optimism?
That whatever we're going through now, it's or whatever I'm going through now, there's always the light at the end of the tunnel. It may not be the tunnel that you thought you were taking, but I'm optimistic, and that that whatever's happened to me has happened to millions of people in the past and will continue to happen to millions of people in the future. So that's we've been through bad things, we've been through good things, and optimistically, we've survived.
Yeah. You really evoked Wyndham Lewis, the counter to James Joyce, guy who invented prank phone calls. He said, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future.
Okay.
So the first question I asked you is, what's the best thing for a human being? Your answer was great. Orange soda, and what was the other thing? Potato what?
And a potato knish. That takes me back to being a kid on Jones Beach, and like having to walk on the hot sand to go to the vendor and picking up an orange soda and a potato knish, and that was a great accomplishment, and it tasted really good. And I'm at the beach and I'm walking on the hot sand, but it was all worth it.
It sounds like it, but then you really said looking forward to something. That was good.
Yes.
Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. The last question I asked is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life, and he said other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you. Thank you so much. It's really been an honor and a pleasure, man.
Thank you very much. Pleasure on my end too.
Even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Okay. All right. Good night.
Later. Thanks.